But the cool thing here, we give the instruction to Claude to create a website for you, and it starts doing that. And then it can, really take and download files, open the terminal app on the computer, edit the code directly to use local libraries, that is files on the computer, and then to actually make it available to view in the browser using like local hosts. Like if we look at like Internet 1.0, right? What was the killer app in your view? What is chat? Chat is the same thing with AI. One-off communication with AI, between humans and AI.
Maybe it had a Pomodoro timer running and it just now I've done 25 minutes of focus work and I need 5 minutes break now.
I'm gonna have to try like AI avatars at some point in this podcast also.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Co-Creating with AI. This is our journey exploring and understanding the fast-moving world of AI. Today we're going to talk about the new Entropic Claude computer use tool and the game-changing aspects of that. With me as always is Rasmus, my co-host. How are you today, Rasmus?
I'm good, a little tired. I had one of those like flying back and forth to London start of the week, just over a day for an event. But it was fun, went well, and ties into what we're going to talk about today, because today is another one of those days, like a couple of weeks back with OpenAI 01, right? When it is moving fast, a little bit extra fast some weeks. So this one I think is really, really interesting to dive into, and I haven't had time to like properly talk with them about what this means. So yeah, I'm actually really gonna look forward to pick your mind on it today. How are you?
I'm good. I am now recovered from a sort of long-term sickness, and that feels awesome to be back into track. And super excited about Claude computer use. It's a real game changer for building agents, specifically agents that can use desktop and web apps. And it's also potentially making a whole bunch of startups obsolete from Adept.ai, which we have followed for the past 1.5 years, and a lot of other web agent startups as well, except that perhaps they provide glue that is still needed. We will see.
Yeah, I think that's going to probably be an interesting thing to dive into in the end as well. Like what, every time the world changes, like shifts, so to say, like what still makes sense. But let's do that in the end. Like let's first, like, because I also want to sort of get into this, but the demo video I saw of Claude computer use, which is pretty much as far as my knowledge goes. So luckily you've had time to dive into this a bit more. But just to give like my take on it, I mean, and just to visualize it for the listeners. Basically, what you see is a software developer wanting to create a website, and we've seen this a lot of times, with these tools, as that as a demo, and that's been the case, right inside, say, Claude with their artifacts view, where you can generate the web page and sort of see what it would look like because they render the HTML. And then we've also seen like different types of coding agents, like Devin, and then what was the new one that beat Devin? What was it called?
We have Replit agent.
Yeah, that one as well, but the one from Cosine, whatever that one was called. But anyhow, putting them up, right? But the cool thing here with this demo is you see it's basically a desktop app, the way I perceive it, at least from the demo. And you write to give the instruction to Claude to create a website for you. And it starts doing that by both going into the browser, opening your browser, fetching information, because it's telling you the prompt is to basically replicate the Claude website, but in a 90s theme. And then it can, really take and download files, open the terminal app on the computer, VS Code, to like edit the code directly, to use local libraries, that is files on the computer, and then to actually, make it available to view in the browser using like local hosts. So basically hosting a website on your computer. And of course, in that, it's using your computer for you. I mean, based on your instruction, right?
Yeah.
But still, it's doing a bunch of things on the computer. So of course, we can extrapolate this quite a bit where this will go and what it could do. But that's what I've seen, and hopefully, for those who haven't seen the video, we'll try to link it in the show notes. That gives some sort of an overview. But anyhow, so like you've been not only seen the demo video, right? But you've been looking a little bit further into this. Like, what are your biggest takeaways so far, and what have you seen?
Yeah, so your description is basically correct, and what just to define really the core of Claude Computer Use, it's a tool that you can give that Claude has natively now, where if you send it screenshots, like a stream of screenshots, it will send you back function calls, which is keyboard and mouse commands to send to the desktop or the browser. So basically, it if you can in any way you want, you can capture screenshots, a stream of screenshots from a screen. It can be on a virtual computer in the cloud, or it can be from the user's actual computer. And what you will get back from Claude is a series of commands to execute. And and specifically in order to fulfill the prompt that you give it, which can be a single prompt up front, which is that it autonomously like works towards achieving. Or you can, of course, if you have a human in the loop, you can update the commands and say, now do this, and please go back and do this. And it's from the start, it's available on an API level. So you can integrate this into any tool chain that already uses Claude, Sonnet, or any LLMs, and that just makes it super accessible for anyone using LLMs, and you don't have to trust a single web agent startup and their web way of using or viewing what way web agents should do. But you can actually just trust Anthropic, since they are like the number one or two players in the LLM space.
Okay, so let's double click on that, like the API and the fact that this doesn't necessarily have to be my personal computer. It could be a server on, hosted on, Google Cloud
Yeah,
or whatever, right?
and
So,
that's the recommendation, since it's still like a security risk to allow Claude to click around on your computer and doing stuff. Like it's to use, at least to have a Docker container running on your own computer, and allowing Claude to only work within that Docker container is the recommended use case.
right. Okay, but let's take the example then that we have a container of some
Mm.
sort, whether it's on my computer or on a hosted server. What like, and then do I like then basically I could install, Mac OS or like Chrome OS or something on that. And that means that I now have an agent able to use an operating system.
Yeah,
And by that, everything you can install on an operating system. I'm not
yeah,
sure if you can install Mac OS on a random server, but there are probably other,
yeah.
open source
Yeah,
operating
exactly.
systems, right?
Yeah, so there are you can rent desktop Mac Minis and so on in the cloud if you want, and or you can use Docker on your own computer. And then, so whatever software you install on that, so as long as you send a stream of screenshots over to Claude API, it will send you a series of new commands back to execute on the screen.
Right. So that's basically it, right? Since all software is adapted to people, and since we can run that software
Mm.
in, many different ways, and since the way to control that software is by, seeing something on a
Yeah,
screen and clicking somewhere on a screen, in short,
yeah,
right? Or writing a command on an app on a screen, so to
mm,
say, if it's like code. Um, then that means that when this works well, now all human software is available for agents, like what
for
Adept
AI.
basically said, right?
Yes,
Yeah. And they
exactly.
do this through vision analysis. That's why they send the screenshots, so they see what's on the screen.
Yeah.
And then in that analysis of those screenshots, it knows where to click, so to say, like which
Mm,
action it can take, and then it sends that action, and that action is taken on whatever computer, so to say,
mm.
that screen is happening, or like it doesn't have to be a screen, obviously it can just be a virtual screen, but like where that software is run, right?
Yeah, and it can
Okay, wow.
send not only mouse commands but also keyboard shortcuts. So like Command A for select all and so on, or just down arrow for scrolling down. If
Or
they ever just
writing text, right? Because you can
writing
click on,
text, yeah.
yeah, exactly, that's writing
And
code.
and they have one tool that what they have natively now is one tool called computer use. There's another tool called um, text editor, which is used to use as standard text editor, and another called Bash, which is using a Bash terminal. So they have specific tools for those 3 use cases, one general and then 2 specific ones.
Oh, this is amazing. Okay, let me play with this and just see, like, from my context of my work, like if this makes sense to you. So let's say I spin up an agent, right? And that can then this is part of its tool stack, right? Then all of a sudden, I can now basically give a home to that agent very easily, right? Because now from that home, that computer, wherever it is, that Docker instance somewhere, it can now work as a person on the computer. And the only question is like, what do you allow it to do? What kind of, what tools do you give it? What software do you give it? And of course, how do you instruct it and monitor the results, etc. But in theory, you now have a full way to spin up agents that can use computers, and by using computers, you can use any software. That's where we're at, right? That's a pretty big shift.
Yeah, exactly.
A pretty big one.
They showed as one demo video showing a very basic use case. They prompted an LLM to enter company information into a form where they said, find the information for this company. It can be either in the spreadsheet in Excel, or it can be in the company CRM system. And so the Claude looked through the spreadsheet, saw that it's not the company is not here in the spreadsheet. So it switched to the CRM system, logged in, and searched for the company name in the CRM system. And when it found it, it started to enter that field by field, going through the form, entering the information from the CRM system into the form, as a very super basic interaction to show that. And no matter how basic it is a very common occurrence. It's something that we all do. Like, we have to fill in a form, and the information is in some system. So we find it and we copy it into the form. And just as an example of automating that, how much time we can release in order to work on our core activities in our professional roles, instead of doing like very, very boring copy paste work like that.
Yeah, and the cool thing there, right, is that the agent can now have access to the CRM without an API, right? I mean, it's so interesting because, like, it sort of supersedes the kind of ChatGPT plugins and tool use. I mean, not fully, right? You're going to want a lot of things via API directly, but in one way, it's just like you just need to give it a login, you know? Yeah. And the weird thing with that is that maybe all SaaS companies will now sell more licenses because you'll have agents as users. I don't know if that's true. That might be true in the short term. But the amazing thing is that you just gave it access to this Excel file, and you give it access to the CRM, and it probably has web search, etc. And then it just, it does what you tell it to, and it can work iteratively on it, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you can install Slack on their desktop. So when it's done, you can report back in Slack to you in a direct message. You can start interacting it. Like, it's just opens up so many venues for new interactions.
But it's the weirdest thing, because it might make it's not make APIs completely, unnecessary.
Yeah.
But in one way, this is the universal API. We were talking about this back in the day, like, what is an integration engine? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah.
And this is, the API is your login details, or the agent's login details. It's quite amazing.
And this comes exactly at the same time as Auth0 has announced their Gen AI authentication system, that they are developing a beta according to their worldview, where since LLMs don't natively talk web interfaces, Auth0 builds on the thesis that the future is going to be built on APIs. The web is going to disappear, and everything will have an API. And Auth0 wants to be the API authentication for LLMs, so they are building that. And I actually don't believe their worldview. I believe much more strongly in Anthropic's worldview, that the APIs are going to disappear because the LLMs can just use the same software that is built for humans, and then over time maybe we will evolve like into a more where like UI's interfaces also disappear, but that's much further ahead. Right now, the world is run by the World Wide Web, and that's where AI is gonna take over as well.
Yeah, I think like for me it sort of seems, and this is a very early thought, right? But it seems that kind of APIs where you have human speed,
Mm,
like using a CRM. That's like, right? Um, and where human speed is okay, especially with the reduced cost of having an AI do it,
mm,
then those APIs are probably going to be less used. Whereas where there's high speed necessary, clicking in a browser is not good enough, right? We're
yeah,
not going to start using Claude computer use to use OpenAI in our product and then go back and report it back. That would be like
yeah,
mechanical Turking, kind
yeah,
of, a modern software stack, which I don't think will happen. So like high latency, high throughput kind of scenarios, and not high latency, like high
yeah.
speed where you need high speed. I really see that APIs will be there,
Mm.
but it should be like it should remove a lot of these like, oh, I got to connect Asana to Slack so that my Asana, when I post there and then it happens, I just like, Claude, do it.
Mm.
Um, but
Or just remove all of that software and just like we're gonna go back to work in spreadsheets because the spreadsheet is the only engine we need, and the AI is going to take care of everything that needs to be done on top of the spreadsheet.
yeah, wasn't there like a good quote somewhere back in the day that like no one would need like all SaaS products are just UX on top of a database, so they're like unnecessary.
Yeah,
But maybe we now go to that. The only thing you need to do is to edit the database, and
yeah.
then that updates another database because that's actually most of software is just like
Moving data
different
around.
ways, yeah,
Yeah.
different ways of editing data and sharing it with each
Mm,
other. But I mean, yeah, that still comes back to the UX question,
mm,
right? Will AI replace all UX? I doubt it.
yeah.
I doubt it, at least in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
So
Sorry.
the two going back to concrete reality of today, the two major things I believe is happening now, thanks to Anthropic. This is only a very early first version. It's going to be a lot more robust in just 3 months than it is now. But what happens now, I believe, is that since Anthropic is building this natively into Claude, then everyone is going to start to have a firm view on a future API that they can start learning and thinking about and integrating towards, doing prototypes, experiments, where they know that the work will not be wasted. Because what Anthropic has done is to launch the way this is going to integrate into Claude for the long run. And that's a very important step to define the point of integration for web and desktop agents. Because now, like developers around the world, AI developers will be able to start working on the prototypes for real without having to believe a single like another startup's view on how web and desktop agents should work. So that's the really big step being taken, I believe, to define the point of integration, and then like the other step is that this is like all the web agent startups have been just that, web agents. Now this is a what the step they are taking is that they are building a desktop agent instead of only web. So which means that it natively can run all the desktop apps as well, including the browser.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I think on the first point, I think they're probably going to define the API, but then, OpenAI will quickly launch something along these lines
Yeah,
with the same API, right? So we'll still have
yeah,
the optionality, which is amazing as end users,
mm,
as long as we're not run over by this, right?
yeah,
By these launches. But as end users, I mean, it's still amazing.
mm,
And on the, yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see like how quickly this goes from what they showed, which they admitted was like relatively controlled and prepared, etc., to something much more openly reliable, like in a much more open format. But I still think that you're correct that they have now put the frame around how agents will interact with us from a technical point of view, which we already discussed, right? And that means that we can set up controlled Dockers with very controlled scenarios. It has these files, it has these softwares it can use, and then it runs we instruct it to work via the Claude API. So it is very significant. Like I'm going to have to really reflect on I see like directly how this reflects into like our view of like helping people work with agents, because now this just made agents much more capable, because now you can have a workflow where the agent goes in and it's actually hosted as a real thing on a real Docker instance on our servers, and then it can do all sorts of things for you. So I'm really grateful to Claude, because this might remove a lot of our integration work. For like customers wanting their content to be put into their CMS or whatever, right? And now we can just like literally have the agents do that. So yeah, I feel very grateful right now, and hopefully I won't come back in a couple of weeks and say like, they just killed us, but I don't think so.
No,
I think
I don't think so either.
This really makes us better.
No, this is another Lego block to build into all the great services that Multiply is developing, and other companies as well. I think this is such a fundamental building block that it's actually not putting any startup out of business at this point, and then it's going to be, as you say, copied by OpenAI. Just they've done that with artifacts by Anthropic, to put that into, I think they call it canvases or something, in ChatGPT, and it's a real power move by Anthropic to achieve this. There was a really fun demo video that they also they released a video of a failure case they encountered, where in the middle of a workflow, Claude just decided to abandon the task at hand and went into Google and Googled Yellowstone Park, went to image search and started browsing images of Yellowstone Park, and then as I think, I don't know if it had an idea of what to achieve by doing that, but it's such a fun way of it just got sidetracked. We're going to do this now. Look at Yellowstone pictures instead.
Oh, that is so funny though. Imagine having that agent spinning onto the server somewhere, actually costing you money. And then you go back and look at it and just like, what did you do?
Yeah.
You just scroll Facebook the whole day again. We gotta have a talk, Martin.
That reminds me of this. I think you mentioned this a few episodes back with this Twitter AI bot that Mark Andreessen donated a bunch of money to.
Have you heard the latest?
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, that they are up to like $1 million in donations now.
But he launched the Goatsus meme coin that is now at $400 million in market cap.
Oh, really?
So the Truth Terminal made a shitload of money from launching a meme coin that instantly went to $400 million market cap.
That's insane.
Funny.
And I read that he's been carrying through all the purchases that AI has asked for, except one single, which was when the AI wanted to buy a lot of porn for a lot of money. Buy porn for a lot of money. He said, I'm going to veto this. I don't know where you're going with this. I'm just going to veto it.
No, it's interesting that this is going to feed so much into the kind of, the ghost in the box or whatever you call it, that the AI is alive. That why did it start browsing Yellowstone pictures, right?
Yeah.
Was it curious? That it is actually interesting. Those behaviors are interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a skeptic on that view, right? That it will suddenly wake up in one sense, but I mean, those things are relatively interesting.
Maybe it had a Pomodoro timer running, and it just went now I've done 25 minutes of focus work, and I need 5 minutes break now. Just going to look at nice pictures. And And then another nice thing they did was a company, or it was a developer using Replit agent, which is a really capable coding agent. They paired it up with Claude so that when Replit agent implemented a feature, it was sent away to Claude, prompting Claude to, hey, can you test this feature for us?
Oh, wow.
And then Claude clicks around and reports back, this did work, that these things worked. And meanwhile, Replit agent is monitoring the backend logs and to see what happens on the back end. And then they get the bug reports from Claude and can keep working autonomously. And so,
Oh, wow.
software development is also going to be completely crazy in 6 months to a year from now.
Yeah, that's like, it's interesting. That's what I've been kind of pitching when I'm like on stage or when I'm talking to investors or whatever lately. Is like, we're at the, like if we look at like Internet 1.0, right? What was the killer app in your view?
I guess information, just to read information, or like the
Yeah, I mean, you
or
could argue websites,
yeah,
but the real
yeah.
thing that brought people online, what I would understood and in usage, was
Mm.
email.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was
makes
the
sense.
killer app. And
Mm.
what was that? That was me and you, people, being able to do one-off communication with each other.
Mm.
What is chat? Chat is the same thing with AI.
Mm.
One-off communication with AI, between humans and AI. And then I'm arguing, what's the next step? Well, for the internet, that was, SaaS, basically.
Mm.
So that was people, I mean, consumer apps as well, but if you take it from a business perspective, that was basically people doing different types of workflows together, or in the case of consumer apps, uh, doing specific sets of actions together, so to say. And I really think that the shift we're doing now from generative AI to agentic kind of AI is, I mean, it's bigger in some senses, but it's also like, it's just like, okay, now we can actually work in processing workflows in, you know, in conjunction with agents, and that's such a huge thing.
Mm.
So, I mean, I really think like that's what I'm always saying now is I think a lot of people underestimate AI because generative AI was just email,
Yeah.
and not even as I think consequential in many ways. But the next step most likely will be, and I think that's really starting now. Like this was a big step towards that. I mean, OpenAI's O1 kind of chain of thought, demo with
Mm.
that kind of level of intelligence. That was a big one as well.
Mm.
And this is a really big one in terms of like being able to roll this out to interact with people through the software that's already out there.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a really good note to end on. We are looking at very exciting times, lots of things to explore and understand ahead as well. The last news about AI capabilities has not dropped yet. We're going to have a lot more things to come.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have to try like AI avatars at some point in this podcast also.
Yeah,
Like
we
like
should.
bring in
Yeah.
AI avatars of ourselves and talking with them and
Yeah.
bring in an agent of some sort and chat with.
Yeah.
But let's do that later.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
And
Martin. This has been really, really, really fun and interesting episode for me.
thank you, Rasmus. Thank you so much. And thank you, dear listener, for being with us all the way. This has been an episode of Co-Creating with AI.